Yeah, thank you so much, Summer. You guys are a fantastic organization, and we love supporting you and the small business community and all of our Arizona-based companies out here. And so I just excited about the opportunity to present and hopefully provide some good nuggets. The topic is around streamlining your back office in a virtual world and building team culture to come back stronger going into the new year. And so, as Summer mentioned, I'm one of the owners of Journey Payroll and HR. We're locally owned and operated here in Phoenix. We work with a lot of current Local First Arizona members, but really we try to just be a resource for our business community and help wherever we can. And this is one of the ways that we're doing that. So the agenda that I kind of wanted to go through is outlining a little bit. I'll give a little bit of background to myself and my company. We'll kind of go through what does Payroll and HR 101 look like. And then we'll talk about some changes that are coming into 2021 as it relates to payroll. What are some of the functions that businesses outsource to payroll companies like ours? And then looking at from a more of a global sense, small business trends and some tips and tricks on how to improve employee experience in the workplace and building a stronger company culture. So again, my name is Stephen Harris. I've been in the industry for over 12 years. I am a certified payroll professional. I did work for ADP for 9 years. That's where I got most of my experience in the payroll world, and it's where I got certified, which is a great company to work for. They treat their employees well, but it's a big, large company. They're actually the largest payroll company in the world. And so with that, I took some of that experience and partnered up with our friends and launched the Phoenix location for Journey Payroll and HR in 2017. We did this to provide a refreshing way to payroll and HR for locally owned businesses, as opposed to working with a large enterprise payroll company and sometimes feeling like a number. So soon after that launch, we partnered up with Local First Arizona. As I said, we focus on Arizona-based businesses and really take pride in taking care of our community. So we're very much involved and very much excited about developing the community as much as Local First is. So talking about a typical payroll process. Okay, so let's say I'm a small business owner. I'm looking to hire my first employee potentially, or you're an experienced business owner and you're looking to hire, it may have turnover as you hire employees. There's a lot that goes into the setup of that new employee. So from an HR perspective, you want to make sure you have your good, your handbook put together, your job descriptions put together, what kind of salary benchmarking do you need to set up. But as you make that decision on who that hire is going to be, there's a lot of forms and a lot of compliance related items that you have to make sure you're aware of. The I-9 is your immigration form, your right to work in the US form where you need to get the verification documents from your employees. So employees will fill out the I-9, the W-4, which is the federal tax election form, and the A-4, which is Arizona State's tax election form, along with direct deposit or how they're going to be paid. So once you bring that new employee on, Arizona is a state in the country that mandates businesses to process all new hires through the E-Verify system. So basically you take the verification documents, whether it's a driver's license, social security card, or birth certificate, along with the completed I-9 and process that through the E-Verify system to cross-reference the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration. Now that must be done within 3 days of hire date. And there's also new hire reporting. So in terms of, you may be familiar with the term of garnishments or child support or creditor garnishments, things like that. Well, the state needs to know where the employee is working. So it's the employer's responsibility to report the new hire to the agency. Once they're fully set up, now we got to worry about the gross and net calculation. So you take your hourly rate times the hours worked, or if their salary, and based on their tax elections that they fill out, we have to calculate what their net pay is going to be. You have your standard Social Security and Medicare tax. It's going to be fixed taxes. But you want to make sure you have systems in place to be able to quickly calculate the gross to net for the employee's check, and then figure out how to pay the employees. There's multiple methods. The most popular electronic method, obviously, is direct deposit. You can also hand someone a paper check. There's a lot more to it, obviously, that we're going through than just handing someone a paper check. But to move more into, as we get into a virtual world, there are electronic alternatives to the paper check if employees do not have direct deposit. And one of those ways could be through a pay card, which is basically like a Visa debit card. where the net pay gets funded onto that card. Now we've paid our employees, we've deducted taxes, there's going to be employer taxes on top of the gross wages, and so we need to remit those to the agencies. Depending on your payment frequency and your deposit schedule, those taxes could be paid every week after check date or every month. But there are rules and requirements on when those taxes need to be paid, as well as your quarterly filings with the federal and state level. And there are rules on whether they can be filed via paper or electronically. So your typical payroll process, as I mentioned earlier, is a lot more that goes into it than just handing someone a check or giving them cash for their work. There's a lot of compliance and calculations that go into the payroll process. So make sure you have good systems in place for that. All right, so talking about Arizona specifically, majority of businesses are very familiar with Prop 206 at this point, but that was the minimum wage law that went into effect back in 2017. Basically, it started in January of 2017. Minimum wage had increased all the way through the end of this year. It's currently at $12 an hour. That rate will be going up to $12.15 an hour starting into next year. But part of that Prop 206 was the mandatory earned sick time. So Arizona is not the first state to do this or implement this. They're not the last state that's going to implement this. But basically, employees, whether they're full-time, part-time, hourly, salary, temporary, seasonal, it doesn't matter. They are eligible to earn 1 hour of paid sick time for every 30 hours worked. All right, so if you're a small business that's less than 15 employees, you can cap that to 24 hours per year. Where an employee works enough hours, you can set that max to 24 hours or 3 days if you have a typical 8-hour workday. If you have more than 15 employees, then the cap is at a minimum of 40 hours per year or 5 days if you have a typical 8-hour workday. Now, those hours can carry over if they remain unused, but it is Arizona law to track that paid sick time on the pay stub or some other means and get that information to the employee to let them know that this is being tracked and those hours are available to them. As I discussed, new hire reporting, all new hires must be reported within 20 days of hire and e-verify processing within 3 days of hire. Arizona does have a rule that if you are a business that has one or more employees, and meaning an employee that's not an owner, so you could be a sole proprietor that's going to transition to an S Corp and now you need to start running payroll. You can set that up for monthly or quarterly or however else you like. But as soon as you hire a W-2 employee that's not an owner, Arizona does state that you need to have at least 2 paychecks per month. So it could be semi-monthly, you choose like the 5th and the 20th or 15th and the 30th, or your traditional bi-weekly every other Friday type of check date. You can also pay weekly. Final pay laws in Arizona, every state has their own. But if an employee quits versus if an employee is laid off or terminated, there are different stipulations on when they must receive their final pay. So if they quit, then you can pay them no later than the next scheduled pay date. But if they are terminated, you want to make sure you get their final check within 7 days of their termination date. All right, so we got some payroll changes coming into 2021. From the federal level, the wage-based limit for Social Security tax has risen by $5,100. $5,100. So basically what that means is the Social Security tax is 12.4%. Half of that is deducted from the employee's check. The other half is paid for by the employer. And so now this year at the $137,700, that tax was no longer deducted from the employees or the employer for any dollar over that $137,700. Going into 2021, that amount increases. So the taxable wage increases a little bit there. In terms of HSA, that's your health savings account. So for any businesses that are offering an employer-sponsored health plan, they may have an HSA as part of their offering to their employees. And there are contribution limits that are set in place. This will also increase a little bit next year. It goes up by $50 for self-only plans. It goes up by $100 for family plans. And then 1099 contractors. So we're all familiar with the 1099 miscellaneous form. There is a new form that any non-employee compensation paid to a 1099 contractor must be reported on Form 1099 NEC, and that stands for non-employee compensation. Starting this January, so all wages or contractor payments, I should say, that are paid out this year, you want to make sure you report those annual totals on Form 1099 NEC. Arizona specific changes, as I mentioned earlier, minimum wage is going up, goes up to $12.15 for all regular employees. For a tipped employee, that's always $3 less than minimum wage. So that's also going to rise from $9 to $9.15. And then the City of Flagstaff will also increase. City of Flagstaff is a little bit higher than the state. Okay. All right, so when thinking about the functions of your business and payroll and HR related items, we like to say a refreshing way to payroll a lot. And what I mean by that is if you're doing these processes in-house, there's a lot of stopgaps and a lot of things that can happen and a lot of miscues, and you may not understand fully exactly how it all works and the different calculations. So I always recommend, whether it's Journey or any other company, I always recommend looking at outsourcing your payroll. It is one of the smartest decisions you can make as a small business owner. The last thing you need to worry about is incorrect filings, incorrect tax payments, timing and all of that, and how to onboard your new employees and getting them set up for payroll. So look for a payroll company that is full service, a company that will not only pay the employees, but they'll also pay in the taxes, file the returns, handle all the W-2s. If you're a Local First Arizona member, obviously locally owned and operated is a goal of their mission. And also as a small business owner, look for locally owned and operated because you tend to get higher level of service. You will have a dedicated payroll specialist. You're not going to have the 1-800 numbers. So find somebody that a provider that you can vet out that is here local in Arizona, and there's a lot of great ones. Look for in-person or remote systems and process training. Now with everything going on this year, in person may not be doable, but the good thing is in a virtual world, we have Zoom, we have GoToMeeting, and if your payroll company has online access, that makes your life that much easier. And look for that company to train you on the processes, run the first payroll with you, and a company that will supply multiple pay methods. So as I talked about earlier, in a virtual world, it can be difficult to give paper checks out to employees. So pay cards are a great option, like alternative option to the paper check. Technology, online systems, enterprise level software for small to mid-sized businesses, something that's simple, effective, something that's integrated. You don't want something that's going to bombard you with a bunch of information you may not need, but you want a system that's strong enough to handle your growth or handle any complex deductions or anything that you may have. So definitely schedule demos and vet out the payroll company that you're looking at and see how their system looks. Make sure it's going to fit within your needs and discuss and talk with the owners or the payroll specialists or the business development teams within those payroll companies, and really ask those tough questions on what their technology looks like and what it can do to support you and streamline processes. And then value, look for that value. Ask about how often they raise prices. Ask about how they charge. Is it transactional based off of an active employee, or is it a percentage of gross payroll, or it can be all over the board. So definitely ask those types of questions and look for that value when vetting out a payroll company to outsource your payroll and HR functions to. So some current small business trends that we have been noticing, and this is according to a global survey by Gartner. When the pandemic hit in March and it was declared a pandemic with COVID, 88% of organizations made it mandatory or encouraged remote work. So that obviously was a huge change for many businesses who are used to being in person. And how do I adapt to that? How do I handle this? How do I transition virtually? And in the hospitality industry, that was a very difficult thing to do. But on the back office side of things, a lot of good people that I've talked to, a lot of business owners that I've talked to, is it doesn't necessarily mean the number of hours in the office is going to provide good work. I need good teams and good people that if you can handle this remotely and handle it virtually and get the job done, then we don't need to have physical spaces per se. And a lot of people have been able to adapt with this work from home movement and really find a lot of efficiencies in being virtual. And then also, if they have to do anything in person, they've been able to use their safeguards and be able to work with HR teams to understand employee concerns and how to handle turnover and things like that throughout this year. So that was a huge stat. 88% of businesses making it mandatory or encouraging remote work have found many ways to adapt through these times. Now, in the healthcare industry, more employees are becoming aware of their healthcare costs and coverage. So as a small business, you're not required to offer employer-sponsored health plans. But if you do, the coverage that you provide to your employees, you want to make sure that it's, it's cover them at all levels, right? Dental, vision, medical, whether it's an HSA plan. Arizona does have a mini COBRA law. So if you're a small business employer and an employee leaves, they had health insurance, and you're under 20 employees, you still need to handle the administration of the COBRA. But employees are becoming more cognizant of their healthcare costs and coverage eligibility. So just something to be aware of as a small business as you look to those things. Your employees are now paying attention to those ideas, and they are great benefits for your teams. Growing industries are healthcare industries. A lot of them have adapted to telehealth appointments, teledoc, sanitizing, disinfecting businesses, obviously small businesses specializing in computer sales and repair. With the remote work and the trend, a lot of obviously everything being on computers and that sales world and repairing and the technology that we all need, that business has been booming. Builders and contractors, a lot of people are at home, so they're looking at their home, their kitchens, or their living rooms, or their backyards, and a lot more often than they used to. And so, buildings, architects, contractors have really been busy this year and growing through this pandemic as they continue to add as people continue to add changes to their homes and remodels. Businesses focused on virtual learning. So a lot of our schools, they had transitioned to online schooling, online education, and there's been other certified accredited school systems that have built out virtual learning systems. And so those types of businesses have been thriving. Then as well as recruiters on tech savvy individuals. So a lot of businesses are looking for employees that can handle online systems, can handle a lot of the technical requirements that go into their job. And so recruiters have been seeing a lot of those industries pick up in terms of growth during this time. All right, so let's talk about improving the employee experience. So a couple things to remember: your team is made up of individuals, right? So you have your vision of how you want things to go as a business owner, but you've got all of your team, and how do I get them to move as one solid unit in the goals and everything that we want to do as a business, and in the buy-in. So remembering that your team is made up of individuals, and each one brings a unique set of information, resources, and skills, and they're very important to each of their roles. And so we want to try and put them in spots to be successful, while also paying attention to where they see themselves years down the road, and what is that path for their growth, and enabling them and putting them in positions to thrive is one of the most difficult things that a business owner has to deal with. But I think if we remember that each person's individual, and focusing on them on a personal level and getting to know them on a personal level is something that can be huge for that employee and wanting to be a part of your organization. Communication is key. It's one of the biggest things that we do here internally. Is we're always talking about what are our goals 6 months from now, what are our goals a year from now. Open and honesty is definitely a huge asset. Let your team know how you feel. This is unprecedented times. Let them know that you are, how you want the business to go, or how you're going to adapt, or the reasons for your changes. Be that leader, be that strong person, but be open and honest with them, as well as listening to their needs and being thoughtful. So just an example, sending a birthday or holiday card each year to your team can go a long way. Buying lunch is just something small that you can do to help that employee experience. And then resources, giving them the tools necessary to do their jobs effectively. So many times I see business owners that expect their employees just to know it, or be able to adapt and figure out what it needs to get done, and build those processes out. But we also need to be able to provide those tools necessary to do their job effectively. If they feel like they don't have the requirements or the items needed to perform at a high level, that will downgrade the employee experience, and they may potentially be looking elsewhere for another position. And then, as I mentioned earlier, put them in spots to be successful, encourage their growth both professionally and personally, and all doing this while keeping safety in mind. So, and respect where everyone's at. A lot of people have different thoughts and concerns, and your team is no different. And keeping that in mind and making sure everyone is open and have that communication in place will really improve the employee experience. Now, building a strong company culture, to wrap up here, setting up, as I said earlier about a health plan, employer-sponsored health plan, or a 401k, if these are types of ideas that you're able to set up for your team, that will help build that company culture and help them feel like you're investing in their future, investing in them, making sure that they're being taken care of. Education, bringing in maybe industry experts to, whether you're a residential cleaning business and you're bringing in someone to go through some different methods that are new to you and explaining it to your team. Maybe there's certifications, and maybe as a business, you're setting them up to help them go get that certification and giving them the tools and the study materials to pass that certification. And then also setting up a pay time off policy to award time off when needed. Now, Arizona has a mandatory paid sick leave, but you can go above and beyond that. So if you have the means to set up a vacation policy and giving people the opportunity to take time off, I know here at Journey, we actually offer unlimited PTO. We don't, we treat everyone as, hey, do your job, do it well. We know things come up, just communicate to us when they do. But we're not going to limit the amount of paid time off that you need, because we trust that you are going to do a good job and be a good team member for us. So that doesn't have to mean that you have to get that excessive, but it does point out that we want to treat everyone as humans, and everyone has their own situations going on. So having those types of resources for your employees can really build on that culture. And then collaboration. One idea is just maybe ask an employee, or once a week or once a month, have an employee send out an email or a text, and maybe it's their favorite quote or their favorite music, or send out lyrics or something completely outside the box to promote dialogue. So having your team buy in and a partnership with and being involved with what's going on will greatly help your business if everyone enjoys working with each other and collaborating with one another. Another good idea is, enjoying a local eatery. Find a local restaurant or a local coffee shop, and maybe ask everyone to go eat there within the next month, and then have a restaurant review internally, and just kind of have that dialogue and that communication on what you liked, what you didn't like. If you're comfortable with it and everyone's safe and everyone feels like they want to do this, go together and go enjoy that time at a local eatery and experience that. And then signing up for a 5K. I'm a runner. I've done some half marathons. I've done a lot of 5Ks. These can be virtual now. You can run a virtual 5K and send out something to your team and say, hey, let's all train for a 5K and put together a program. There's lots of different things that are out there, but make it fun, and maybe take pictures or do it all together. I know that races are starting to come back around, and so maybe find a local race that's out there. But again, signing up and doing things as a team will really promote that collaboration and build that strong company culture. And then lastly, community. Giving back to your local community as a team is huge. So not only building that collaboration internally, but also building that collaboration externally. There's a lot of businesses that are struggling that we can support. There are a lot of charities out there that are looking for help and volunteers. Maybe internally putting on a food and supplies drive that you can partner up with, or helping at a local charity event, Habitat for Humanity, for example. There's a lot of them out there, and feel free to reach out to myself or anyone else on the local first team. We have a lot of nonprofits here that we can help get you in touch with, and lots of different great ideas. But again, building that strong company culture, doing things together as a team and giving back to the community is really what's going to help drive that, and overall the growth of your business and success of your business and your team. So that's what I have. Hopefully you got some good nuggets on kind of what goes into payroll, what goes into HR, how to streamline those processes, and vetting out local providers, as well as building out your company culture and building on the employee experience. I'll go ahead to the next slide and just kind of provide my contact information. If anyone wants to follow us on social media or reach out to me directly, by all means, go ahead. We post a lot of blogs and a lot of different industry news, as well as non-industry news and just things going on in our world that are really good reads. We post them weekly and sometimes more than once a week. But I'm definitely here as a resource, and you guys anyone can reach out to me at any time. But I'll open it up to if there's any questions, Summer, that I can answer right now. Otherwise, that's the end of the presentation.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephen. It looks like we do have a question in the chat. I think maybe they're going to type it, or you're more than welcome to unmute yourself as well and ask a question. But I'll give them a second just to either chat or unmute and ask. Oh, there we go. How do you balance staff outings and communications while balancing COVID concerns?
So that is obviously a hot topic, and it is difficult to balance that. I think you just have to have conversations with each one of your employees. One way I've seen people do it is if employees don't want to speak their mind in front of other people, is sending out a survey, and just send that out to your team and figure out, percentage of people that would be okay with outings. Even if you have one person, you need to take that into consideration. But there are ways to do things, especially we live in a beautiful state in Arizona. There are ways to do things outside with social distancing and with masks. And, I know a lot of nonprofit and local charity events are really taking that into consideration, obviously keeping everyone safe. And a lot of these different outings that you do with community events will have their own COVID-19 protocols. And so what we've done in the past is ask for those protocols. What are their processes? What are their procedures in place? And then send that out to the team to add a little bit more of their comfort. But again, you can make it optional. Don't have to make anything mandatory. You don't want to leave those people that are concerned with doing in-person outings. You don't want to leave them out by any means. So you want to make sure that you have Zoom meetings, virtual happy hours or virtual items that they can be included on, and make sure that they're feeling like they're still part of the group, and they're not feeling singled out. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thanks, Stephen. Let me know if you have a follow-up question. And if anyone else has any questions, you can either leave them in the chat box and I'll read them. Oh, second one. Do you feel like you are pushing too much with staff communication, with the intercommunication to get them to connect? Question. I'm nervous it might feel forced. Thanks for the first answer. That all made sense.
Sure. So if I understand the second question correctly, it's, do you feel like you're being too communicative, like asking too much of your staff or reaching out too much? I don't know if that's, I think the lack of communication or lack of reach out would do more harm to your business than it would to take a pulse on your team. I know it can even be as simple as sending out a weekly quote, like I mentioned earlier, a motivational quote just to motivate your team, or say, hey guys, figure out what your team's interests are, and maybe it's trying to figure out a way to promote that dialogue and keeping it fun and light. I don't think I think you'd be surprised. I don't think your team will think that it's forced or that they have to communicate or they have to be involved, but you will be surprised on the number of people and the number of players on your team that will communicate and will enjoy that. And so I think by the lack of communication would do more harm than getting creative in ways of promoting collaboration.